Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our first in our series of video blogs or vlogs for VisiSoft. And what we're doing with this series is trying to get different people from across our business at VisiSoft and spread advice that can help tourist attractions and those in the industry move forward with their attraction, and particularly how technology can play a key role in that. I'm joined today by Carl Ashbury and Lee Drew. So Carl Ashbury heads up our support team. And Lee is the managing director of Jugo, one of the businesses within the group that VisiSoft supplies to. And Lee spends a lot of time working with tourist attractions, advising them, and he'll go through some of the practical steps and some of the things that he's seen in the real life industry. And of course, Carl is sort of there on the front line supporting our customers and tourist attractions. So again, you can see some real life examples and share with you what we're seeing in the industry right now. And I guess the hottest topic on for conversation at the moment, here we are with the clocks just went forward and we're ready for the new season. And this year's a bit different to most in that, yes, there's always that sort of new season planning to be done, but it's more important than ever because we're coming out of lockdown and hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel and we're moving in one direction now. But we just wanted to go through some of the sort of practical steps, practical implications of some of the commercial thoughts that you may have about reopening and making sure you've got your attraction in the best possible place to make the most of what hopefully will be a really positive season for everyone. So I'm going to start on your side, Carl. And if you could just share with us some of the more practical and maybe technical preparations an attraction should be making, I guess, any season from a reopening point of view, but this season more than ever when we've had 3 months of total shutdown in most cases where nothing's been open. So that means none of the technology is on, none of the staff have been in. But like I said, even in a normal year, there would be some degree of reopening to be done. So if you can just sort of share some of those thoughts of what you're seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think most importantly, like you touched on, there's going to be a lot of businesses that haven't opened at all for months on end, and I think a big thing that's going to impact that technology, speaking is Windows updates really. Microsoft will put out updates sometimes on a weekly basis, and those PCs, those tills, if they haven't been switched on within that period of time, they're not going to be getting those updates. So businesses can be in a position now where you could potentially, depending on how long you've been closed for, have hundreds of Windows updates that need to be applied, and that can actually take some time. We've kind of seen it in the past where it could take hours, unfortunately, to kind of get a till operational.
Okay, so this is for any attraction who are using Windows-based IT, really. Yeah. So whether it's on your tills, your PCs, even anything like that, and it doesn't really matter what the software is on there. It's all about the operating system that runs on. And in practice for us, then, if you have had your till turned off for 3 months, what can you expect when you turn that back on after 3 months? What's it going to do? Is it you going to have to do anything yourself, or how will that work?
Yeah, I mean, it would completely depend on how your update settings have been set, really, whether you're set to automatically download the update but only install it when prompted, or whether just everything is automated. But yeah, worst case scenario, you could come in and your machines, like you said, any PC really that's Windows based, can be sat there with 100, 200 updates pending, updates installing. So it's definitely something to be aware of, at least, and just make sure you're doing prior to the first day of opening.
Okay, so you need to factor in some time, and can there be any other implications? I mean, do these work every time? Can these cause problems themselves if you've had a long time since your last updates, or is it just a case of factor in enough time and you'll be okay?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, Windows updates are incredibly important to the security, at least anyway. So it's not something you want to just either turn off to make sure that you don't have the updates, or just basically skip and not apply them, or anything like that. So it's definitely important for businesses to apply them. But things can go wrong if you don't have enough space on your hard drive, for instance, to apply and install these Windows updates. You could have some problems there where the machine might not actually be functional if you try and update them. and that is going to be the case. Well, that could be the case, let's say, for any machines that have had a bigger build up of those updates. Therefore, the update size is being quite large.
Okay, so the more time you can factor in before reopening to go through this process, at least if something does go wrong and we need to you need to swap out some machines, or you need to involve your IT to get things up and running. At least you like I said, you're not doing this the night before reopening. So
exactly. Yeah.
there's no reason attractions shouldn't be doing this now if they're opening in a week or a month's time. But let's get it done and get them at least on the most recent version to minimise that risk.
Most definitely, yeah, 100%.
Okay. And in terms of other, if we think about the tills themselves, what's obviously a lot of what we deal with as VisiSoft and one of the key components of our software, and the vast majority of attractions will have tills of some form, whether it's in admissions, retail, or hospitality. What sort of things do we see that might go wrong when things have been off for a long time? What areas should they be checking? I'm thinking some of the peripherals, the printers and things. Are they common areas that settings can go askew when they're not being used for a while?
Yeah, exactly as you said there. I mean, hardware, at a top level really is something that you should be checking regularly anyway. I mean, even just kind of take the physical tills themselves. They've got internal batteries that if they haven't actually been plugged into any power for a few months, let's say, the internal battery on the motherboard could actually die and may need replacing. But if they are connected to power, just not turned on, that shouldn't be a problem. And that's the same with a lot of things really that have some form of computing motherboard in there, where it will have an internal battery that could theoretically die. So it's definitely something that should be checked ahead of time, because you don't want to come in and not be able to give receipts to customers or things like that. So the peripherals, the hardware itself, make sure you can function the touch screen, make sure that you can print receipts, or at least test that the paper feeds out of the printer, sorry, and just things like that.
Okay, great. So hardware wise and operating system, that's quite generic for any attraction that's got any sort of EPOS system that's Windows based and like I said, using till hardware. In terms of our own VisiSoft customers who are using our software, one of the things I know we're going to discuss with Lee is around changes in what we're actually selling in the attraction may be different to what we were able to do last year when when people were fully open. We've got this idea of partial opening, eating outdoors and things. So I think it's quite reasonable to say that a lot of attractions, what they're going to be selling or the offerings is going to be slightly different from last time they were open. What do our customers need to be thinking about from that point of view in terms of everything, menus and the like?
Operationally speaking, it's going to sound silly, but just making sure that all of the staff are back into the swing of using VisiPOS really, or any software that they're using. One good thing with VisiPOS specifically is that you've got a training mode built into it, and kind of, well, I've been doing this nearly 10 years now, and I know that if I was away from the till, not looking at it for 6-12 months, that I'm going to need a little refresher, and let alone for any of the visitor attractions that have seasonal staff and things like that as well, that are going to be even longer away from the business. So utilizing kind of the training material that we supply, and then the training mode that's built into VisiPOS itself as well. In terms of kind of menus and things like that, I mean, like you said, things would have completely changed within the last 12 months in terms of how they're going to operate, whether it's new ticket types that have been added to the system or different events and things like that. You're going to want to make sure that your quick access menu is up to date with those buttons, is up to date with those events and tickets that you're going to be selling. So making sure that even just giving it a once over, just to make sure that everything on there is still valid, because there's going to be tickets that are no longer relevant now, for instance, and different bits like that. And I mean, I do think it would be worth taking a look to see what's within the latest versions of VisiPOS as well, that would help a business operationally, especially around hospitality, which we've kind of focused on a little bit more recently, such as table ordering and things like that, that might not necessarily have been something that a visitor attraction would look at prior to the coronavirus and things like that, but now is something that is becoming a lot more prominent within the industry. So just checking for any operational changes that VisiPOS, VisiSoft may have adapted to. to
Yeah,
use.
we've all seen a number of attractions move to a bit of a hybrid model between sort of traditional fixed tills and tablets as well. Obviously, VisiPOS runs on. So again, thinking about where's the best place to, sell to your customer and the best way to do it, because that's going to have technological implications if you do need to like I said, change what VisiPOS is installed on or how you're working. And again, a bit like the message you said earlier, I guess the earlier you do this, the better. Whether you're doing a short opening now and then closing before the summer holidays, like plan it in with to make sure you've got time to do all this, because it's not just the sort of practical installation, but like I said, the training of it as well, and making sure your staff have got time to get familiar with any changes you've done. Is there anything else before we sort of talk to Leon, sort of the more commercial side and the customer side? Anything else you'd like to sort of share with either our customers or more generally with the industry when it's coming to reopening?
Yeah, really just to summarise that, I think things are going to be a bit different, aren't they? And we are going to need to just get back into the swing of things, really. Like we've said, it's 6, maybe even 12 months for some places where they haven't been operational. So just make sure you use all of the resources around you to get up to speed as quick as possible, because I do think that things are going to pick up quite quickly once places are allowed to open. Just make sure everybody's really prepared as best as they can be for it.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Carl. We'll move on to sort of Lee's side of things. And as I said at the start, Lee spends a lot of his time working with our customers, advising them and guiding them through how best to use technology in their attraction. Lee, before we go into some of the sort of ins and outs of your advice and what you've seen, more generally, how are you finding attractions? Are attractions on it at the moment? Do you see that they are putting reopening plans in place, or do you think that they're potentially leaving it a little bit too late? What's your experience there?
Yeah, I think the majority are, really ramping up their kind of activity. There's a lot to put in place, obviously. A lot of changes, as both you and Carl mentioned, not just technology, but operationally as well, and how they might simply get visitors into the buildings or around the areas differently than they used to. So I think, a lot of attractions are getting on it. But also, a lot of bringing back staff from furlough and things. So there's some attractions are having a lot less time to prepare for those, changes and things. But I think overall, everyone is really keen to get stuck in. And I think there's also going to be a lot of pent up demand from customers. So everyone's going to need to bring their A game, I think, when it's all opening up again.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the big uncertainties when we had the first lockdown and reopened was would people even want to come back? Yeah, there's one thing being able to be open, but with all the risk and uncertainty around COVID, there was a fear in the industry. Maybe people won't come back. What we saw is they did over last summer, and I guess a big part of that was the role attractions played in giving families the confidence that they'd be safe in their attraction. Do you have any advice around that, about how you communicate and how you actually do make sure your visitors do feel safe, and a mother's got the confidence to take their child to an attraction or not?
Yeah, I think it's more just giving as much information as possible, not just kind of when you're there, but the pre-visit experience, whether that's during the booking, to kind of let them know, what it's going to be like, make people have a conscious decision of whether they want to come based on what you've put in place. And again, reminding customers, as they're visiting, about, things like wearing masks in restaurants and queue lines. I've got 2 kids, and I wouldn't take them somewhere that I wouldn't feel safe taking them. So that's where I think attractions are working really hard to make sure everyone with their families feels really comfortable and as safe as possible when they're visiting and getting those good experiences.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Capacity management plays a role in this safety element, and again, giving customers the feeling that they're safe and things are under control. How have we seen attractions manage what could potentially be a bit of a headache from not having these sort of restrictions 2019 and before? What are the implications of that? How are attractions handling the limits that they're putting on capacity?
Yeah, I think a lot of the industry has been used to just traditional sort of day tickets or dated tickets or open-ended tickets, really, where you haven't got to really worry too much. You can sell a ticket on most types of platform, and then they just come as they see fit. But obviously with COVID, that's changed massively. I think it's split into two really. That a lot of attractions have technology in place, which has really struggled with it. And they've had to put workarounds upon workaround, which has really impacted customer experiences. During the booking process, making changes, that sort of thing. Whereas I think the attractions that have implemented new technology, where they can manage capacity, so put restrictions on each day, but quickly make changes to that if they need to. Allow customers a simple booking process. All that sort of stuff has been massively important, I think, and I think those attractions are coming out better the other side, because again, the customers feel confident that when they're booking their ticket, they know that the capacity is managed correctly, and it's going to be a safe environment for them to come to.
Yeah, okay. And I guess that does have some sort of positive side effects for an attraction, in that if you've got more visibility of your capacity and people have pre-booked, then you sort of make the most of that information and make sure that means that with that knowledge you're staffed correctly, you've got the supplies you need, you've minimized queues, etc. So while it's a strange situation, I guess they make the most of this extra bit of luxury planning that you can get at the moment.
Yeah, and a lot of attractions that I've sort of spoke to, they have absolutely no plans to remove this kind of pre-booking facility. Even when you don't need to, potentially with changes in COVID and lockdowns, the sort of information it's given them around planning is just, second to none really of where they were, especially when a lot of maybe larger or medium-sized attractions are having seasonal staff where they'll kind of maybe send them home partway through the day, or maybe not get them in if they're suddenly not as busy on the booking side. But they can plan, especially with bigger events as well. It just gives them so much more visibility. And ultimately, I think it's going to make a massive difference to their bottom line, especially when at the moment we're going to be dealing with less capacity that they're used to. Whatever they can do to maximise that and give them information, I think is really useful. Really.
Yeah, definitely. Touched on a little bit with Carl around potentially the change in model, particularly let's focus on hospitality and F&B. What changes are you seeing on the food and beverage or the hospitality that was offered a year, 2 years ago, compared to what we're expecting attractions to need to offer over the next 6 to 12 months?
I think a lot of sites have kind of sort of streamlining their menus, whereas we've all been there where you've got almost a book to choose for your menu for lunch. Whereas I think now it's more about serving customers quickly, especially at the moment, not indoor seating, so moving them away from the venues and getting them out elsewhere in the attraction. And like you said, I think offering sort of takeaway offerings, ability to self-service potentially as well, or mobile order in advance. They have other benefits as well, is that you can increase basket spend, all that sort of thing. But I think menus are certainly adapting to deal with that much quicker service, and especially in phase one, you're not going to be able to sit down your table and wait for 35 minutes for your meal to come out if you're indoors. So it's kind of offering different things, maybe picnics that they can collect and take out into a bit of an open space, or maybe pre-order some food for when they arrive. So with their tickets, maybe book a breakfast or something they can pick up from a kiosk and take along with them. Again, just getting them into the attraction, but sort of spreading everyone out a bit further. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess two of the takeaways there, would be if you are doing sort of food on order, if you simplify your menu, keep it simple, it's going to allow your team to react to those orders quicker. And like I said, you don't have the luxury of someone who's sat down at a table and sitting there for half an hour. Or if you can do things that can be prepared ahead, like the picnics and things, that's really going to help your team with making sure your visitors are stood outdoors waiting for a takeaway for ages.
Yeah, and queue lines as well. I mean, no one likes queuing at the best of times, but especially at the moment, with social distancing and things, with certain indoor restaurants, it's very hard to implement a big queue line and that sort of thing. So yeah, getting people in, making it streamlined to get them out, is a really good way to go, I think.
You mentioned furlough earlier, in that a lot of attractions have had to make use of furlough, and it's been a lifeline for not just this industry, many industries. But in terms of some of the implications of having staff out of the business for so long, and I'm thinking from a training point of view or almost a re-onboarding, what are we finding for the attractions that have started bringing people back already? How are they finding that, and what amount of work are they having to put into to get people back to speed?
I don't think there's any denying it's a massive task for attractions. I mean, as we sort of mentioned earlier, you know, a lot of these staff can be seasonal as well. So it could be their first season, or they're coming back from a season where they haven't been there for 12 months. And it's not just learning, you know, operationally around menus and that sort of thing. There's always new rules now around how many people can go in an indoor outlet, how many people can, I don't know, go in a queue or whatever it may be. All those rules. And I think, again, what I've seen is that attractions are preparing as soon as possible and giving staff, you know, handbooks to view online, documentations, you know, sharing out even some of the information that Carl said that we can provide our customers to help with, you know, adapting the menus and buttons and training modes, that sort of thing. Just the more information we can share, I think, with everyone, the better, really.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, guys. I don't know, Lee, have you got any sort of final thoughts or you know, final bits of advice that you'd want to give our customers and others in the industry before we wrap up?
I think really it's probably, you know, not just us, but talking to your technology partners and seeing how the systems you've got in place can help. You know, if you look at kind of VisiSoft, you know, we can help with takeaway and tablets and all these changes and operations that we have discussed. You know, and it's the same for other sort of vendors as well. Just looking at what you've got and just, I guess, kind of going back to scratch really, and just mapping out how you could make things more efficient, whether it's with mobile ordering or self-serve technology. Just kind of make use of what you've got and really just, I guess, adapt as best you can to things as they change over the coming months.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, guys. Like I said, we'll get this shared on our social media and out with our customers, and hopefully give them a little bit of extra information. But what I would say particularly to our VisiSoft customers is, you know, like Lee said there, we're here to help. So talk to your account manager, reach out to the guys in support if you do have any issues on reopening. You know, we know that this is a really big time, not just in this year, but potentially in the sort of history of your business. So we want to play our role in helping you, and hopefully this little bit of information we shared today is just one of the ways that we can do that. So yeah, thank you ever so much, guys, and we'll catch up soon on the next episode of our VisiSoft vlogs. Thank you.
Cheers, George.